Ron Atchison for AutoForge.net, and today I've got my good friend Jason Brennan in from Rupes, and he's going to go through the Rupes line that AutoForge has now taken on. So great to have you here, Jason.
Hey Ron, thanks for having us.
Appreciate you stopping in. So Rupes has been around for quite a while.
Yeah, actually quite a while. For those that don't know, Rupes is in Milan, Italy. Started in 1947, so we've got a rich history in tools, and we have a global footprint, but also here in the U.S. as well.
Okay. So when Rupes got into the car market, let's call it that, they started off with what tool?
That's a very storied question to answer here, but it actually started back with sanders and power tools. Rupes is actually one of the first to come out with a random orbital tool, random orbital sanding. So when we go back to 1947, we'll start with some sanders and also some drills, to be honest with you. One of the things that really put us on the market in the drills, and just to touch on history a little bit, is the plastic body tools. Today, most of those you'll find are plastic, but there was a reason for that as far as not shocking people when they were using power tools back in the 40s and 50s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so fast forward a bit, that kind of brought us into the orbital sanders. And if you're in the detailing world, you would have seen us around 2010, 2012, SEMA in that area with the introduction of the Bigfoot random polishing system, which is a very long stroke polisher. As you'll see here, we do have a large
If I can
selection
say,
of
that
tools.
pretty much put the detailing world on its head.
Yes.
Nobody had seen anything like that before.
Yeah, so if you were to look at videos, you'll probably see Kenny Brown videos that point back to SEMA 10, 12 years ago at this point that really kind of exploded and put us in that detailing footprint here in the United States. Yes.
All right, so we've got a lineup here of all the different tools that Rupes makes. Let's go through them, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about each one.
Absolutely.
Obviously, this one here is a Rotary.
Yeah, you'll hear the Bigfoot name, right? Rupes Bigfoot.
Right.
So what is Bigfoot name? That's actually our polishing system. It doesn't point to one specific tool. So when you look at these here, you will see the Bigfoot name on the Rotary as well as the dual action random orbital tools. What you have here is a LH19E electric rotary polisher. And what you notice, this does look a little different than some of the stuff that maybe your grandfather would use, a real heavy industrial tool that just wears you out after a day of working on the car or whatever you may be working on. Very lightweight, very high torque. So that is kind of a favorite when you really have a tough defect to go after, something that you really need to do some cut. The Rotary is going to be your choice of tool.
Yeah. I started with a Rotary.
Yeah, same
My
here.
first Rotary was an aluminum-bodied Milwaukee.
Okay, yep.
It weighed about 19 pounds.
Yep.
It turned like 600 RPM, and that was it.
That was my introduction too. A DeWalt 849, if you've seen that too, very, very heavy. My career was in polishing boats when I got started, and I went home very tired from a big Rotary. So I'm very appreciative of what we have here.
So with your Rotary, you have different size backing plates that
Yes,
Rupes makes?
correct. 4-inch up to 6.5, so we can bring your Rotary down to a very small pad, up to your standard 7-inch pads that you'd see in auto body, buffing on boats, that type of thing.
So this here's your speed control, and then also is this a...
Yep, that's a variable trigger. So variable trigger also with a speed lock. So if you don't want to hold the trigger all day, pull the trigger, hit the button, and let it go. You'll notice in our Rotaries, they are set up like our DA as far as how you can grab the tool for those that really want to do precise action in a small area. But we also have side handles and D handles. That's kind of more of the conventional handle you'd see on a Rotary tool.
All right, and then it's also got basically the feet molded into the body so you can set the tool down and
Without
roll over.
scratching, correct.
All right.
Yep.
And then moving on with the forced rotation machines.
Yes, so this is our Melee. What a lot of people don't know, we're actually the first to design a forced rotation polisher. What makes this unique is that it's also the same rotation as your Rotary polisher. Other units on the market spin opposite, so when you go to buff, if you're not used to that rotation, it's going to walk you all over. So we're pretty proud of this. It spins the same direction. You'll see here, spins clockwise, so it doesn't walk you as you're working over the surface.
And again, you've got the variable speed control, variable trigger.
Yep. So force rotation, random orbital. So the random function is the same. And you may be able to hear that on camera, may not. That's the gears. So that is the controlled function. It doesn't change. And it's also directly connected to the motor. So for some guys that are used to a rotary and want to get into a random orbital tool, this is kind of like a hybrid tool to move them into the random orbital type space.
All right, so
Force
with this
rotation.
tool, as long as you're pulling the trigger, it is spinning.
Correct. It is not free spinning. So whatever you're doing with the trigger, it is putting it right to the paint, 100%.
Interesting. So from there, now we go to the random orbital part of the line, and this is probably the most famous one, the 21.
Yeah, that's the one that's put us on the map in detailing. You've been around for a long time, so you're probably more familiar with the older, like Porter cable tool.
Yeah, I've got one.
A lot of people wanted to figure out how to get rid of swirls, and that was the first recognition of a random pattern does not leave holograms or swirls. Rupes took that and basically put it on steroids. This one here, as you see, is a 21 millimeter orbit. Very, very large, very, very fast correcting. 15, we also have a 15, I'm sorry, jump in there. But these tools are the same other than the...
Well, the 21 is a 6-inch backing plate.
Correct. 21 6-inch backing plate, 15 is a 5. But the difference is also going to be your orbit. So this is 15 millimeter versus 21.
Right. Actually, you can see the amount of the backing plate that's exposed, so you can get a gauge for the size of the stroke. If you look on the 15, there's not much backing plate exposed to where, so you can kind of...
Correct. They do kind of have their place. That is probably one of the most common questions we get is, do I buy a 15 or a 21? That can be a very long subject to get into, and I'm sure we can do another video on that, but these are both free spinning, random orbital. So the orbital motion is fixed. The free spinning will come from the RPM of the backing plate, depending on your technique, pressure, and other variables that would be involved.
Well, you know, another thing I'm going to touch on real quick here.
Sure.
It's been talked about a lot since this machine came out, and I know there's been a lot of R&D gone into this by Rupes, and that is the shroud actually touching the backing plate.
Correct.
And people talking about, well, it's touching the backing plate, it doesn't spin like it should, but in reality, that's there for a very specific reason.
It is engineered there for a couple different reasons. The majority of that is for when you take the tool off the paint, that it slows the rotation of the back plate, doesn't splatter all over the place. To get into whether that should have a spacer, I know there's a lot of stuff on the internet. It does not need to have a spacer. All we simply recommend is some dielectric grease to lube the shroud, and that will keep that free spinning in motion. This could also go down a rabbit hole, but in our testing and so forth, and we could do this on a hood, any amount of drag that you would have from this here does not affect your cutting because your orbital is still moving. There's
Right.
nothing stopping that orbital motion. So yeah, that's a kind of a little bit of a controversial thing, but yes, it is there for a reason.
Okay, so then moving on from that, so we've got a 21 millimeter throw, a 15 millimeter throw, and then that brings us down to the Dueto, which is a 12 millimeter throw.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites that doesn't get a whole lot of attention. It's going to be very similar to the Porter cable as far as like the body size and what people are used to. However, it's a 12 millimeter orbit. So your Porter cables and some of the other similar machines on the market are 8 millimeter.
Right.
Very, very small rate of correction. This is 12. So this would be a step above from maybe a Porter cable before going to a large 15 or 21. The other thing with this here, sometimes certain paints, softer paints, finicky paints that are really hard to finish down, they don't like that aggressive long throw. Sometimes that is just too much for a
Right.
soft paint. So in certain cases, that smaller orbit might be the answer to that. It's a Dueto. If you'd see it's written there, Dueto. So it's dual purpose. This can also be used as a sander for doing damp sanding, wet sanding. So very versatile as far as what that tool is actually used for.
And you'd use the same backing plate to
Correct.
sand or polish.
5-inch or 6-inch, you could put a 6-inch backing plate. 6-inch is a little bit more common paper that you'd find in the store, but yes, 5 and 6-inch would work on that machine.
One thing I will say about this machine, as small as it is, it's quite heavy. I mean, you can tell there's something going on here. You know, it's not a light plastic, cheap feeling toy.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's powerful. There's a lot of guts and material. So when you think there's actually, you've got counterweights in here, just like the large machines. So yeah, but it's also smaller. So some of that kind of makes you think it's a little bit heavier.
Well,
it's the size, but yeah, very well built machine.
Yeah, you can tell there's something going on when you pick it up. It's definitely got some meat to it. I don't think it's so heavy that it would be fatiguing or anything, but it's definitely a quality tool. You can tell by just picking it up and feeling it.
Yeah, and a little bit more maneuverable in some of those tight spots. You might be using a smaller tool.
And then that brings us to the newest one out.
Correct. That is the HLR 75, which is it's actually an hybrid tool. If you see the name hybrid for Rupes, a lot of people think, yeah, this is the hybrid.
Right.
Hybrid is actually the technology, okay? Hybrid will work on battery or AC power. That's what the hybrid part of the tool is. This is an hybrid nano. This is our 3-inch hybrid HLR 75. I'll touch a little bit on that while we're on the subject.
So you pull the battery, just slides out the end.
Correct. So the hybrid technology, if you don't have a battery, or let's say you're somewhere out in the field, you've gone through a couple of your battery packs that are dead, you simply could plug in your AC power.
Or you already know, I'm going to be using this more than the batteries, so you could just start off.
Yeah, the run time on that is actually a little bit longer than the charge time. So run time tends to be about 40 to 45 minutes, charge 30 to 35. The kits come with 2 batteries, so as long as you're rotating them out, you will always have battery power when you switch to your next battery.
Nice.
But on the AC side of things, and now you've got a unit that you can plug into a wall without your battery. Now on the HLR 75,
that really doesn't. Actually, I mean, you don't feel any more weight or anything like that to it.
That is one
still
thing.
Very balanced.
Yeah, that's one thing that Rupes really likes to focus on, whether it's the small tool or the big tool, is the balance and the ergonomics of the tool. The AC adapter for the HLR 75 is not quite to market yet. That will be available as a separate accessory, but I wanted to touch on the hybrid technology so we could be clear of what that is. Hybrid is a technology, not the specific tool.
And what's the throw on this one?
That is a 12.
So it's also 12, just like the Dueto.
Correct. So
Okay.
a lot of throw, that's also 18 volts, so a lot of power for a very small tool.
So, and then this one also has speed control.
Yep, and paddle application.
All right. And you can also use this for sanding along with the Dueto.
Correct. 3-inch backing plate.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap this up really quick on this tool here. This is for use for 1-inch and 3-inch.
Right.
And this also will do rotary as well as DA functions.
And this one also has speed control right here on the top with the paddle trigger.
Yep.
So nice. All right. Well, thank you, Jason, for going through the Rupes line, explaining some of this stuff. I know I've learned some things about the tools that I didn't know. So
Yeah, quick overview from rotary all the down to intricate micro polishing.
all right. Well, I hope you found the video informative. Jason, thanks again for stopping in today.
Thank you for having us.
If you'd like to see any more videos like this, please subscribe. If you'd like to learn any more information on Rupes products, I'll provide a link below, along with links to all of the products that we've showcased today. This is Ron Atchison for AutoForge.net. Thanks for watching.